Hello friends, I welcome you again to this channel. Friends, in this video, we are going to discuss 7 deadly sins as presented by Christopher Marlowe in his famous tragedy, The Tragical History of Doctor Faustus. Friends, Marlowe has created 4 immortal tragic heroes, namely Doctor Faustus, Tamerlane, Edward II, and Barabbas the Jew. Among all these 4 tragic heroes, we find one common element, and that common element is that these heroes are villainous heroes. They are the protagonists in their respective tragedies, but they hold some characteristics of a villain, and Faustus is not an exception. Dr. Faustus in the play, in the beginning of the play, is presented as a learned scholar. He is presented as a reputed scholar. He keeps on learning different branches of knowledge. He learns medicine, he learns law, he learns philosophy, he learns logic, he learns physics, and many more other branches of knowledge. The question is why he was learning this. The answer is that he wanted to empower the whole universe. He wanted to earn name and fame. And he had this ambition, to achieve power and honor in the universe. And this leads him to his damnation. The knowledge that he has acquired through all his learning, still makes him dissatisfied. And later on, a kind of internal conflict goes on in the mind of Dr. Faustus. And this conflict is presented by 2 characters, the good angel and the evil angel. Later on, he chooses to go to the wrong path, and he signs a contract with Lucifer. And this, in fact, is the beginning of his damnation. But later on, after having signed the contract with Lucifer, he realizes the limitations of his powers as bestowed by Mephistopheles. And at that moment, he starts repenting and he starts remembering the God. But Lucifer comes back to him and reminds him to remember the conditions of the contract. And Lucifer asks him not to think about Christ. And so Dr. Faustus turns blue. Dr. Faustus gets disappointed. And to entertain Dr. Faustus at this moment, Lucifer and Mephistopheles present a show before Dr. Faustus. And that show is the show of 7 deadly sins. These 7 deadly sins are introduced to entertain Dr. Faustus, and it is presented in sin number 5 of the play. What is a sin and what Christianity believes about this? Let's talk about this. As per the Christian belief, all unrighteousness is called a sin. When somebody neglects the divine law, the law of God, that is also known as a sin. Catholic Church believes in two kinds of sins. Number one, venial, and number two, mortal. Venial sins are smaller and could be and can be forgiven, but mortal sins, they cannot be forgiven. They threaten to destroy the life of grace. Each sin, it is believed in Christianity that each sin is punished by an appropriate form of suffering in hell. Indian philosophical tradition also holds the similar idea. If you read Indian philosophy, if you read Bhagavad Gita, or if you read Indian scriptures, they all conclude the idea that every sinner is punished at the end of the day. Our Indian philosophical tradition believes that wrong deeds of all human beings, they are ultimately punished. I have taken this verse, as you can see on the screen. I have taken this verse from Bhagavad Gita. It reads like this. I quote, Trividam narakasyedam dvaram nasanamatmanah kamah krodhas tatha lobhas tasmadetattrayam trajet. It means that these are the three gates leading to the hell of self-destruction of the soul. What are these three gates? According to Bhagavad Gita, lust, anger, and greed. These are the three gates which lead you to hell. And it is said in Bhagavad Gita that we must abandon these three sins. Christianity believes, in Christianity, philosophers talk about 7 deadly sins. There are 7 sins which are deadly sins, which we must avoid in our life. But as far as the character of Dr. Faustus is concerned, Dr. Faustus one by one commits these 7 sins. And that is the reason why he meets his tragedy. Marlowe wanted to show us all sins which Faustus is going to commit during his world of pleasure, which he signs a contract with Lucifer and he enjoys for 24 years, and during this 24 years Faustus commits these sins. Marlowe takes the abstract concepts of the sins and parades them before the audience. They are presented by Lucifer in the same way as a medieval morality play. In medieval times, in morality play, also, such scenes were presented by the playwrights. So, that's the reason why Dr. Faustus' this play is also considered as a morality play. Let's talk about these 7 deadly sins one by one. The first sin which is presented here is that of pride. It means excessive self-esteem. Those who are guilty of pride in Christian belief, those who are guilty of pride were destined to be broken on the wheel in hell. This is the punishment of this sin called pride. Lucifer in this play is also a symbol of pride. Why? Because we know this story, if you have read the Bible, then we know that Lucifer was thrown from heaven because he would not accept the Son of God being placed at God's right hand, which he believed to be his own rightful place. And that's why, he was thrown into the hell by God. And this is so because of his pride. In this play, Faustus' pride also can be seen when he feels that he is superior to others. His dealings with the Pope, the way he mocks at the Pope, the way he shows off his powers to the emperor, this shows that he is a man of pride. So we can say that Faustus has committed this crime, has committed this sin. Covetousness is the other sin presented by Marlowe in this play. It means the desire for material wealth and gain. And it is but natural in case of Dr. Faustus, we may easily say that Faustus has committed this sin also. And those who commit such sin of covetousness are destined to be put into cauldrons of boiling oil in the hell. If you mark these lines, as you can see on the screen, you mark these lines, this shows, the desire of Faustus for material wealth and material gain. Faustus says, "Oh, what a world of profit and delight is promised to a studious artisan. Oh, what a world of profit and delight, of power, of honor, and of omnipotence is promised to the studious artisan." This was the dream of Dr. Faustus. Faustus wanted to be the wealthiest man. He wanted to earn profits in his life, and he wanted to be a very popular fellow, a reputed fellow. So, this desire for material wealth, makes him commit the sin of covetousness. The third sin, which is presented by Marlowe in this play, is wrath. Wrath means anger. It refers to excessive, uncontrolled feelings of anger that can lead to such offenses as assault or murder or sometimes self harm. When a person becomes angry, when he gets angry, sometimes he hurts the other people, sometimes he hurts himself. And Christianity believes that we must avoid this anger, this wrath. And those who are guilty of this sin are destined to be dismembered alive in the hell. In Dr. Faustus also we find that wrath appears when he is not able to do anything in his life as he was intelligent. In the beginning of the play, he gains all his knowledge, but this knowledge also he remains dissatisfied and he gets angry on himself. Another sin is envy. Envy is characterized by spite and resentment at seeing the success of another. Friends, sometimes when we feel, when we see that others are progressing faster in comparison to us, sometimes we feel envy. And Christianity says that we must avoid this sin in our life. Those who are guilty of envy are destined to be put into freezing water in the hell. And Dr. Faustus envies the great emperors of his times. His envy, in fact, leads to dissatisfaction. Another sin is gluttony. It means an excessive desire to consume more than that is required. Sometimes we start we start consuming food and all too much than what is required, and this is also considered as a sin in Christianity. As per the Christian belief, those who are guilty of gluttony, they are destined to be forced to eat rats, toads, and snakes. Faustus, his desire to gain power and pleasure than that much which was required is also can also be considered as gluttony. Next sin is sloth. Sloth means idleness, laziness, or the failure to utilize the talents given to you by God. And those who are guilty of sloth are destined to be thrown into snake pits in the hell. In the case of Dr. Faustus, sloth appears when he got all kind of knowledge and he feels laziness from his knowledge. And the last sin is lust or lechery. Lechery means excessive craving for the pleasures of the body. As per the Christian belief, sexual intercourse is considered to be purely for the purpose of procreation, and any sexual act in which a person indulges for enjoyment rather than produce children is considered as sinful. Okay, and Dr. Faustus is not an exception. He commits this sin also. Those who are guilty of lechery are destined to be smothered in fire in the hell. And Faustus, you can see towards the end of the play, his fascination to see the beauty of Helen is nothing but an act of lust. It is an act of lechery. So, friends, we can say that Dr. Faustus has committed all these sins in his life of 24 years as presented by Marlowe in this play. These 7 sins are, in fact, the reflection of Dr. Faustus' personality. He is a self centered person who only thinks about himself, and he commits all these sins to fulfill his desires. He is, in fact, a person imprisoned in his own desires. But ultimately, at the end of this reading of the play, we must realize that Faustus is not simply Faustus. There are so many Faustus in our life also. We all have some weaknesses at one point one point of time in our life. Sometimes we are tempted to commit such sins. So unethical ways of living and all such sins, lead us to the path of damnation. And this is the moral message that we receive from this tragedy, the tragical history of Dr. Faustus. Faustus is damned forever because of his sins. Okay? And the last point to note about the 7 deadly sins is that the presentation of 7 deadly sins is in fact an element of morality plays. So when we are analyzing this tragedy as a morality play, we must talk about these 7 deadly sins. So friends, here we come to the end of this presentation. If you have any doubts or questions, please do write it in the comment section of this channel. Thank you. Thank you very much.